we welcome to the program a member of the 9/11 Truth Movement in Montreal, Jacques Marcille. Welcome to the program, Jacques. Are you there?
Thank you, Michel. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Yes, and David is on the program as well. So I presume you recall when David Ray Griffin actually visited Montreal a couple of years ago and addressed the 9/11 Truth Movement.
Yes, I do. It was. I checked in my notes. It was on June 20th last year. I discovered that David Ray was coming to Montreal when I discovered your website, and that's also when I first became a member of the Truth Movement here in Montreal.
So perhaps you can tell us a couple of things about what's happening in the 9/11 Truth Movement in Montreal, are they events marking this commemoration?
Yes, we tried to get the right to march from one public park, the Atwater Park, to downtown, but this was refused. So we decided to hold a couple of rallies in Montreal. One is on Friday at Phillips Square, another on Saturday at Place Jacques-Cartier in Old Montreal, and finally on Sunday we'll be mixing with the crowd at the Tam Tams on Montreal Park.
Well, that's fabulous. David, just another question. You're in California. I presume that you're also the number of events in California taking place this weekend. Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I know there are some down in San Diego. And I say the one that I'm participating in is the 9/11 Film Festival here in Oakland. So it's going on. It started last night. Dylan Avery came and showed it was the world premiere of the next version of Loose Change. After the final cut is a new one called Loose Change 9/11 American Coup. So we saw that last night. And then there are films running all day today, some excellent films, including, by the way, the Anthrax Wars. And then I speak tonight. And, yes, there are events all over the country today. So the 9/11 issue is definitely not going to go away.
You mentioned before the break the critiques which were waged against you. And I recall as well, and it bothered me significantly that several of your critics are in fact people who claim to be progressive and who are themselves anti-war researchers as well as critics of U.S. foreign policy. I won't mention names, but could you perhaps tell us a little bit about that, because it's bothersome that the 9/11 Truth Movement hasn't been absorbed and embraced by the anti-war movement.
Yes, it is very disappointing because the 9/11 movement is an anti-war movement. We're pointing out that the pretext for the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan was 9/11, as well as the pretext for the great elimination of human rights, the extraordinary extradition, and so on. It all goes back to 9/11. And yet so many people on the left want to distance themselves from us, and in doing so, not only don't join us, but attack us more viciously than the mainstream press does in order to prove that they're not 9/11 nuts. Now, these people are either, I think they are just ignorant. They are so certain they're right, or they're so certain that they don't dare have anything to do with this, that they will not study the facts. I was just in conversation with a fellow, and he just kept giving me a priori reasons. Well, why would they do this? Why they wouldn't have done this? And I said, well, look, we can't sit here and figure out why and what they would have done and so on. The important thing is the empirical facts. And the empirical fact is, and I listed a few of these, he won't even look at them. So he just wants to stay with his belief, and He's an anti-imperialist, but he will not use this as one of the reasons to criticize the present version of the American empire, and yet that's precisely what the expansion has been based on.
I think that we have to go to a short commercial break. Our guest, David Ray Griffin, and Jacques Marcille from the... Welcome back to the Global Research News Hour. This is Michel Chossudovsky. Our program, which is broadcast Monday through Friday, is an initiative of the Center for Research on Globalization. Stephen Lenman will be talking to Bob Chapman tomorrow. Our guest today, David Ray Griffin, and joining us also from Montreal, Jacques Marcille, who is a representative of the 9/11 Truth Movement. Jacques, I wanted to ask you a question. There is in Canada a strong movement directed against the war in Afghanistan, and but the link with 9/11 is rarely mentioned. The fact that 9/11 was the justification for invading and occupying Afghanistan. How do you react?
Well, the anti-war movement is very strong in Quebec, probably because Quebec was invaded by the British Army over 200 years ago, and this has left an indelible mark on the collective psyche. So the Quebec population was immediately against the sending of Canadian and Quebec troops to Afghanistan, and I believe the percentage of the population that is opposed to this war in Quebec is presently around 70%, which is the vast majority of the population. Now, I think the general population understood immediately that 9/11 was used as a pretext in order to invade this country, and probably can generalize to the other invasions, the invasion of Iraq and the now invasion of Pakistan in the same way. So people can come to their own conclusions, even though they are subject to mainstream media.
But if they had a better understanding of 9/11 and if they had read through David Ray Griffin's writings, presumably it wouldn't be 70% of public opinion which would be against the war, but I would say probably everybody, because it's so grotesque. If I recall, the war on Afghanistan was declared by NATO, invoking their Article 5 of their Articles of Agreement, that it was invoked within 24 hours of the 9/11 attacks. In other words, on the following morning.
I agree entirely with you. If, for instance, the conclusion of David Ray Griffin's research were available to the public on the mass media, people would accept that 9/11 had not been instigated by an obscure group of Arab militants, and as a consequence, the opposition to the war would be far greater. As well, I think they would understand that there are other consequences, and that they themselves are actually being attacked in their own at the level of their rights and of their assets. And I would like to add as well that I think one of the reasons the anti-war movement distances itself from the 9/11 truthers is because of all the ridicule and the tar and feathering that is going on vis-a-vis the members of the 9/11 Truth Movement, because we are attacking the system at its Achilles heel, really.
Absolutely, David. Last year you released a very important book, which was entitled 9/11 Contradictions, an open letter to Congress and the press, in which you list, in each of the sections, you list a number of contradictions to the official story. My first question is, one, did you get an answer from the members of Congress? Did they ever, well, it was an open letter, but did you get any response from the U.S. Congress on these contradictions?